Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Skura, also known as Islands in Front, and today I want to talk to you about Fae, Keeps and Mulligans, which is one of the most difficult topics regarding this deck, and it required so much work for me to be able to actually create a proper resource for all of you to enjoy, which is on my MetaFi new guide to Keeps and Mulls, into which I and my friend put like 20 or 30 hours to do it properly. And why? Well, we needed to take a look at math for the number of 1-drops in the deck, chance for 1-drop and ninja, hitting the second land because typically there's the temptation to keep 1-landers, hand improvement, so what's the chance you actually draw into something that makes the hand better, but also simulation for a couple of 100 hands to see whether there is some kind of clear logic that's coherent. Framework, if there is any auto keeps and mulligans, experience when it comes to play patterns, because play patterns are determined by what you have kept, and the recalibration for the keep specifically when you've already mulliganed, and then depending on the specific matchup. So that was a ton of work to actually analyze this all, and a huge shout out to my co-contributor Hypergeomancer, link down below. Check out their YouTube channel where you already can find some very nice deep mathematical magic related stuff. I couldn't possibly have done it without him, so thank you very much. He's a maths PhD, so this is where my mathematical trust lies. And this is just a sneak peek at an example of the thing we did. There's so much more, but this is, for example, a graph where we try to see and plot how the probability of having of seeing the second land was, depending on how many cards you see, depending on how many lands you have in the deck in general, and we had just so many graphs like this. But actually getting into the actual meat and potatoes of this video is the actual hands and heaps. So this video will be a very nice kind of jumpstart teaser for a much bigger piece I've got on MetaFi, but question is, what do you need to look at when you look at your hand, right? You see, you have the 7. What should you pay attention to, right? So the first one is there a 1-drop plus ninja? We could even split this question into, is there a 1-drop? Is there a ninja? Because a hand without a 1-drop but with a ninja are going to be pretty bad typically, because you don't have the 1-drop. So if you want to ninja your spell starter, it's going to take, 5 business days. However, if there's 1-drop but no ninja, you can start playing the game a little bit. It might enable your off one mind, or maybe a second miscreant. You can draw into a ninja, and the board is already prepared for that ninja. So now the combination of both is where the deck's power is, right? The same way Terra wants to have a turn 3 Terra. You look at, okay, does this hand produce turn 3 Terra? Does this hand produce, let's say, 10 damage if you play mono red? Does this hand produce turn for combo if you're high tide? Does the deck produce turn 3 Tron, maybe, if you play Tron? The same way goes for this deck. Does this deck produce 1-drop plus ninja? Does this hand produce 1-drop plus ninja? And it's not like Bogles, where you cannot play the game if you don't have that, but your draws with that and without are going to be vastly different. And just imagine if you're on the other side of the table and the fairy player goes, attack you for 1 with Fairy Seer, pass. Whew, right? Because you're not put on that vicious clock. So definitely that's like probably the biggest thing you should look at. But also, how many lands do you have? Because if you've got 0 or like 7, that's clear. But what about the other combinations? And the most common combinations like 2 or 3, which is perfectly acceptable. You don't have to think about this too much. But what if it's 1, right? So like you have to now count the probabilities that you'd actually do hit the second land, which is not that trivial, right? You might feel like, okay, I feel that, I want to keep my, miscreant plus hacker, because I think that's enough to draw me the second land. But is it really? Right, so you have to actually do the math and be sure where's the line for the capability, which I also break down in my full article. But the gist is 2 and 3 are perfectly fine. But for 1-drop, for 1-lander specifically, you have to take advantage to take a look at whether you have Fairy Seer. You're on the play or on the draw. Can you hacker immediately on turn 2 to get that 1 more draw in? Because that all depends on the cards you see, actually the graph I showed you previously, right? And also, even if you hit the second land, is the hand good? Because, like, not every hand is just, like, just needing a second land. Some do, but some aren't. If you hit the second land, the hand might still be just lackluster. For example, if it doesn't have the ninja. Another thing is, what synergies does the hand have? Because the deck overall doesn't really have much strength, right? Individually, your cards in Mono Blue Fairies aren't good, but the deck's power is fueled by synergies, right? So does the hand have any synergies, or you're just hoping to draw into one? So 1-drop ninja is some synergy. Can you have, fairies with spell status and kind of keep the opponent on the back foot the whole game? Okay, that's synergy, right? Does your deck have, for example, snap and spell status to kind of lock them? Does the hand have off one mind and, for example, intruder to actually enable it, right? So you can actually chain the cards and get into and through the deck. So the hand cannot be a disjointed piece of random cards from your deck. It has to have some sort of plan, some sort of synergy to take advantage of, right? Because otherwise it's just a collection of pretty mediocre cards from Limited. Another thing is, what's the chance that your hand improves from the position it's already in? And that's particularly important if you have already mulliganed because your hand wasn't really the best, but you get another hand that's not really the best. But then, well, what do I have to mull to 5 now? Well, hold your horses. What's the chance the hand improves? For example, if you keep, let's say, a bunch of lands, but you have Intruder and Fairy Seer, right? And you're not sure if it's like a keep on 6, but you bottom a land, or you mull to 5. Well, then you're thinking of what improves this hand when you have Fairy Seer, Intruder. Okay, any ninja, any off one mind, spell starter, especially on the play, right? These are all reasonable. And then you count this up, you've got 8 ninjas, 4 off one minds, 4 spell starters, right? That's 16 hits. Then you've got the Scry 2, and you try to think of this, well, maybe this is a keep, maybe it's not worth going to 5 because this hand has enough of a keeping range because of the improvement capabilities. But if this intruder was something else, like Miscreant, then you lose the off one mind part, but you gain another Miscreant. But if this was Ilvoy, that you actually just lost the range because now you like off one mind off the top is no longer as good as it was, right? So all these small differences, make the difference overall. So what's the chance the hand improves? You have to think about this definitely. There's also the question is, at the end of all of that, should you mulligan more, do you think? Right? You, my dear viewer. And what I will say is that if you watch my games, and I've got so many replay analyses on this channel, I mulligan a lot. Some people even say I mulligan too much. But I think this is one of the biggest things that contribute to my success. Basically, I don't keep hands that, again, based on everything I've said, they have a synergistic plan, proactive plan. They hit their land drops. They actually do the thing it's supposed to do. I don't keep hands that just participate in the game because it's just not good enough. It's not good enough to just play lands and play a couple of creatures because they're bad creatures. And the Fae deck is, built to take advantage of the fact that it has untapped mana base and it puts immediate pressure on the opponent and they have to react back. Otherwise, they'll die. And if you keep a hand that doesn't do it, then you're not doing justice to how the deck is built, if that makes sense, Like the same way if you keep a terror hand and it has like a couple of lands, Lorien revealed, 2 terrors and like 2 counter spells. You participate in the game, but until you actually play the first terror, it's going to take, 5 business days, and that's just not good enough, typically. So I do think you should mulligan more. I'm not sure how much you're mulliganing, but you probably should mulligan more. And I'm not talking about the forced mulligans, right? If you see an unplayable hand, you mulligan it. That's irrelevant. There's no decision there. I'm talking about the hands where you do have a decision. I think the bar for keeps for this deck should be higher than people give it credit for. And to not leave you hanging just with theory, let's go into practical examples. And I've brought a couple of them for you. So the first one, double land, Fairy Seer, Ilvoy, Miscreant, double ninja, right? So what you're thinking, 2 lands, okay, reasonable. Fairy Seer already bumps the capability. I've got 1-drop and ninja and also 1-drops and ninjas. Insulation against removal, awesome. This hand doesn't have spell starter, snap, or counter spell, so it has no interaction. So, what's the verdict? Well, it's an absolute sniper. It's like, I wouldn't think about this for a moment, right? Don't get baited into thinking that it has no interaction, because this deck is not reactive. It is proactive, interactive, yes, but not reactive. So first and foremost, you have to make sure that you have your proactive plan as a deck with 1-drops, with ninjas, and with untapped mana base, okay? So this hand doesn't lose if it didn't have, like, I mean, of course, if like Ilvoy was snap or counterspell, I mean, sign me up, but excellent hand, just a warm up, okay? The second hand, land, intruder, miscreant, triple piece of interaction, ninja. And I said to you that intruder and a Fae, improvement rate, right? Potentially off one mind. Sprite interaction is synergy. Snap and counterspell, interaction. Ninja, the best thing in the deck combined with a 1-drop. But there is no second land. And the chance that you actually get a second land just like that, just kind of raw dogging it, just hoping you top deck into one land, is just way too small to keep this. And I know it's very tempting. And if I knew the land is on top, I would probably never lose this game of Magic with this hand. But unfortunately, you have to just say, okay, tough beats, I'll mulligan this. Because otherwise you're risking, like, you know, a 60% chance that you just don't participate in the game and just lose immediately, which is not the chance you want to be taking, right? Which also comes to a different tip from me. Tip: don't get attached too much to mulligans and keeps, okay? Don't get too emotional. Don't think like I feel bad for mulling or feel bad for keeping. Just make rational decisions, especially it's best if you pre-build your framework for keeps and mulligans, which is in my guide, so you don't have to then put emotionality into it when you're at the tournament. Okay. Example number 3. Couple of lands, okay? Creatures, counterspell, snap, right? So this is a cool hand, right? Well, it isn't. This has to be a mulligan. On the 7, I mean, right? These are all on 7. Let's say it's on the play. Okay, Ilvoy pass, land pass, then you cannot sprite the 2-drop, so you cannot, because you don't have a face, so it's actually not being proactive in that sense, so you have to probably use a counter spell or something, whereas you would happily just fire off sprite on anything. Counter spell? Sometimes you want to hold it off, something more important, but you either play counter spell on anything just to play something, or you don't do anything that turn, and then you draw another card, and you're just praying for something good to come off the top, because this hand doesn't accomplish anything. It just participates. I think the bar for mulligans should be higher than this. I would mulligan this. And another example, and I think this is, if you're an observant viewer, you know, this is a hand that shows the concept I talked about previously, which is widest improvement range. Because this has 4 lands, maybe just 1 too many, but no, it was a good hand, then I wouldn't show it, no. So 4 lands, but it has Pharisee, Miscreant, Intruder. So any ninja's great, off 1 mana is great, spell starter's great, and another Miscreant is great. And if I'm counting correctly, that's 8 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3. So this is like 19 hits, right? And then you've got the Scry 2. Like, the fact that you've got Scry 2 is also very important. So, for example, on the 6, I would snip this off immediately and be super happy about this. If you're on the draw, then the chance of getting what you want is higher by 1 card, but I think you're losing spell starter as the draws, because you cannot stutter a 2-drop on the draw. That's how just play patterns work, right? So it's a bit of a delicate balance, and of course you cannot have all the math in your head. That's why it's better to do some pre-work previously. But for this one, for example, I would snip this on 6, and then on 7, I think this could depend on your risk aversion, right? Because you might, and I'm this person, I don't want to keep a hand hoping to draw the best card or a good card, right? I want my opening hand to have an inherent plan in itself, to be self-contained, so I'm less worried about what I draw, rather than keep this and be like, oh, I never drew anything. Well, but I kept nothing, so. So yeah, so these will be 4 examples showing a couple of things I talked about today, and as I said, visit my MetaFi, because there's a over 4,000 word guide on keeps and mulligans just on this topic. And I've put so much work into this. I'm really hoping it's going to bring you a lot of value. But also, I hope this video was also a very nice teaser into the topic as a whole. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me, comment down below. You can find me on YouTube, on Twitch, on X Twitter, on Reddit. I post there pretty often. You may actually have come here from Reddit. Hello. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching. And as always, please remember to hold my hand and let's pass the 10 together. And I will see you next time. Cheers. Woo.